Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for coming to this session. Really happy to see you, to see your happy, smiley faces this morning. So my name is Steve. Like as advertised, I work at Microsoft. Most of my career so far, I've focused on web. Building web UIs, web platforms, web frameworks, things like that. But like many people in the last few years, I've started to direct a lot of my attention to AI, so where a lot of energy in our industry is going at the moment. And I'm sure the same is true for a lot of you. So let's find out. Can you do a quick hands up if you consider yourself a web developer? Yeah, that's like, I could say 80% of the room. How many of you have got in production now something that you would consider to be AI in any way? Yeah, way smaller number. Like we're talking perhaps under 10% of the room there. So that's cool. There's clearly a lot of growth area, a lot of growth potential in this area. And so what we're going to talk about this morning is the intersection of these two things, web technology and AI, and in particular, how to make stuff useful. Now that word in the title is doing quite a lot of work here. That's perhaps the most important word. What do we actually mean by useful? How can AI actually be useful? Well, one way that AI can potentially be useful, you might be thinking, is to advance your own career. You know, it can be a way that you can build some cool demos, if you can impress your boss, get a promotion, put something in production. Who cares whether anyone even likes it? That doesn't matter because you've got your promotion by now. And I would admit that that is genuinely one of the main use cases for AI that a lot of software developers are thinking at the moment. And if that's your concept, well, you know, I'm not here to judge you, but that's not really what we're going to focus on. I want to focus on usefulness from the point of view of your end users. So what we want is to be able to develop stuff that people are actually going to use. And I don't just mean they use it because you've taken away all the other ways that they could get their work done, although that does happen sometimes. I mean that there are different ways that people could get their jobs done, but they're choosing to use some AI feature that you've shipped because it actually saves them some time. And I don't mean that, you know, that's just like your opinion, dude. I mean, it actually is real. So not only do people use it, and you can measure it from, you know, your usage stats, but also that it produces the right useful results for them. So it's not just producing hallucinations, it's not just producing garbage, but actually produces the right things. And you can measure that. You can actually score it numerically. That's going to be a key thing that we're going to be trying to get to by the end of this talk, is actually objectively measuring the correctness and usefulness of what you're doing. Okay, so there's quite a lot that we're thinking about, like how to bring in here, and it might be easy to lose track of what we're trying to achieve. So hopefully, let's just set some expectations. What we're trying to do by adding AI features is improve things for the human beings who use your software. So the actual people who are going to work with it all day, we want to give them more control, more freedom, productivity, and general satisfaction in their work lives. That's what we're going to be aiming towards. And AI can contribute to that in a few ways. One of the main ways is that it provides the right information to people. So it could be the right individual bit of information that's pertinent to the moment, or it could be aggregating loads of data and summarizing it in some way to produce the right kind of summary. One way or another, you're producing the right information for people and allowing them to skip the boring parts of their work so that the human beings can do the things that they are actually good at. They can bring their creativity, their autonomy, and, you know, deliver the value that they can within their day-to-day work. All right, so that's what we're aiming for. Now, it feels like a long journey. I know it feels like a bit of a climbing up a mountain as per the tedious analogy here. So what we're going to do is try and break it down a little bit into different stages, and we'll go through some demos of doing this in different ways that get increasingly sophisticated as we go. And we're going to start at the bottom here with ways that we can use AI just within the UI layer of our application. So the premise here is you've already got some software. You don't want to throw it away and rewrite it completely. You don't even want to redesign your UI very much. You want it largely to stay the same, but just make it more intelligent and more productive, more useful in some way. So let's have a go at doing that. And we'll do this in a few different ways. Let's get started with this example here. So let's say that you've got a UI with a big form in it. You know, it could be a mailing address form. It could be something like a bug tracking form where you have to fill out all the details, okay? And there's going to be some human being who has to use this as part of their job. So maybe there's some administrator somewhere who receives emails like this one, and it says, please add me to the system. My mailing address is all this stuff. And the administrator looks at it and goes, okay, Veronica, I will add you to our system. So they start typing Veronica, and then they think, oh wait, hang on, there's a special O in there, so I better copy and paste that. Also, I'll copy and paste the surname, and I'm going to copy and paste the phone number. And they get to about this point and they go like, oh, I can't do this. Do I have to spend all day every day doing this sort of thing? I'm a human being. So they come to you, the software developer, and they say, hey, software developer, you think you're so clever, right? Well, why don't you make your software not suck then? And so you think, okay, that's a bit aggressive, but I'll see what I can do. So you go and have a look in your code and see, well, can we bring AI to bear on this, make this a little bit better? Now, if you were in Thomas's talk before this one, you might have a sense of where this is going to go, but you can see it again just now, and then we'll move on to some of the patterns. So when we've got a form like this, we could use AI to automate the process of filling it out. Right, so I've got some source code here. A lot of my demos are going to be in .NET because that's the background that I work on, but it doesn't matter whether you're a .NET developer or whether you use whatever other technology you like. I'll also do a demo in JavaScript, another one in Python, so you'll get a sense of this from a few different angles. But even if you don't get the code, it doesn't really matter because the general principles and patterns will apply. All right, so I've got this big HTML form with some special things in it, these different components for inputs and such. And what I'm going to do is add something called a smart paste button, and I'll show you how you could implement something like that in a minute with whatever technology you like. Okay, so how would a smart paste button work? Well, I've added that to my form, and what that could allow our user to do now is maybe just copy all the data that's relevant to this form, hit on a smart paste button, and then AI will look at that and match that up with all the fields on the form and populate it properly. Okay, not just mailing address forms, but maybe things like this bug tracking one or whatever. So here, let's say we've received this little message from our boss through Slack or Teams or whatever, and it would be nice if we could just copy that, come over to the bug tracker, hit on the smart paste button, and it would fill out all the right drop downs, pick radio buttons, make a title, write a sensible set of repro steps based on what they've written, all that kind of stuff would be quite nice. Right, so implementing something like that, it's not that difficult. The main thing is you just need to have some way of calling a language model. Okay, so let's have a look at how we can do that in this case. So here I'm going to find the code that does the inference on that. It's down here, and I will find a relevant place to put a breakpoint. All right, so you can see what we're doing is we're building a prompt that we can pass into a language model. And that language model could be OpenAI APIs, it could be Mistral, Bedrock, it could be Ollama running on your machine, whatever, that doesn't really matter. The point is that you've got some language model and you can say to it, hey, please give me a JSON object, and for each key on it, infer a value from the user data. And let me just put a breakpoint in here so we can see what prompt it actually generates for real. If I just hit paste on this again, you'll see it's hit my breakpoint now, and we've generated, oh, it's really hard to see on this tiny screen. Okay, we've generated that prompt. I'm just going to actually copy that value and paste it into a new tab so we can read it. All right, so we've told the language model respond with a JSON object. We've got this list of fields. I didn't have to hard code that. You could just write a bit of JavaScript that walks through your form, gets the list of fields, and sends that to the server so that it can generate this prompt. And it tells it, for each field, infer a value. Don't explain what you're doing, just infer values. Okay? So then that's going to go back into the browser, and again, we have a bit of JavaScript that walks over that and uses it to populate the form. Not too difficult and works pretty straightforwardly. Okay, so let's get rid of that breakpoint. All right, so that is an example of a general pattern called data extraction. So there's lots of cases where you could do that, where you could have people upload forms or supply audio data or whatever, and out of this unstructured data, you're going to pull some structured data that you can make useful within your application. All right, let's look at another UI pattern, and this time we're going to look at type ahead. So another case where we want to make stuff faster for our human being users. Right, so let's say that another person who works for your company is some sort of HR administrator, and they have to spend all day every day replying to inquiries from employees about things like, how much vacation can I have? So they come to this form and they type like, for vacation, you get 28 days. For more info, see and then they think, oh, what? Seriously? Am I supposed to remember URLs now? I can't be bothered to do this. And so they come and complain to you again and say, look, make your software actually save me some time. So you'll go and have a look in your sources and you'll say, okay, what can we do to improve this? So let's find this thing that I was working on just there. All right, so this is what I was working on just there, which is this form. And they were typing into a plain old HTML text area, which does nothing intelligent at all to help them. So maybe you could implement your own smarter version of a text area. Maybe you would call it a smart text area or whatever else you like. Okay, and what will that do? Well, it could be something that you can configure with a user role and a set of user phrases, which in this case I've set up to be an administrator. And the set of phrases is a list of things that give information about the policies in our company, like how much vacation you have, what the URLs are for different things, what the email addresses are, and all kinds of stuff like that. Okay, so now when the user starts typing, for vacation you get, and if they just pause for a moment, then the language model is going to make a sensible way of completing what they're typing. Okay, for more info, see. I'm not sure what the URL is, but it's okay because the system will pick the right one out, or email us at whatever it is. Yes, that. Okay, thanks for your message. There we go. And so we've more easily been able to produce a sensible little response to our end user. And in terms of how that works, well, it's more or less the same thing that we saw before. So we'll have a look at where the inference for that happens, which is down here. All right, so this time we're building a prompt that says, predict what text the user in the given role would insert. And we give it various other bits of guidance like, don't make up new information, never invent new information, because we're really keen on not inventing new information. And, you know, if you don't know what they're going to say, just reply with no prediction. Various ways of hinting it to not just make up garbage, but to only respond if it's got high confidence where the sentence is going. Okay. In this case, it's also using a technique called few-shot examples. So we're going to give it a series of examples of different forms of completion, like here, if it's a family member sending a text, you might use a phrase like this. For customer service, you might use a phrase like this, and so on. And then at the end of it, we're injecting the list of phrases that are specific to this particular text area. So it's not very difficult conceptually. The only hard part about implementing something like this is the actual JavaScript that is going to, you know, produce this grayed out text and allow you to select it by pressing tab. So if you want an example of how to implement that, I'll give you a link to the source code that I'm using here later, so you can steal that if you want to. But apart from that, the stuff that's happening with the language model is pretty straightforward. Okay, so there's another pattern, type ahead. Let's look at another UI pattern that we can use to accelerate things for our users, semantic lookup. All right, so this ties into the whole general area of semantic search, but if we want to apply it specifically to our UI, we don't want to redesign our UIs, we just want to use our existing UIs but make them smarter. Think about the cases where you've got drop-downs in your application. Like, let's say that this is an expense tracking system, and I want to track expenses for a plane ticket, but I have no idea what the expense category for plane tickets here. So I'm just going to type plane, and it's going to use semantic matching. So even though there's no substring match on that word in this output, it will be able to match semantically. I'll show you how that works in a sec. Or if I type cats, you know, it's going to suggest pet care and charity and so on. I don't actually know why it suggests clothing, because I don't wear my cat, nor does my cat wear any clothes. But anyway, the first few examples do make sense. Okay. Similarly, if it was bug tracking, maybe someone comes along and tries to tell you that your software is slow, but then they'll be prompted to use the correct label for that, which is performance. Or maybe they're saying there's a problem with mobile, and it'll prompt them for either Android or iOS. Or if they say there's a problem with desktop, it'll prompt them for Windows or Mac. Now, how does it know to do that? Did I have to program in all these associations, like between the word mobile and Android and so on? No, I did not, because, of course, this is using a language model. But, critically, it's not using the same kind of language model that I used before. So last time, I was using a large language model, something like, you know, GPT 3.5 or Llama or anything else like that, a large language model. But for semantic matching, you don't need that big machinery. You can use a much, much smaller model and get very good results as well. So it's small enough to easily just run locally on your server on CPU with high performance. In fact, it's so small that technically you can even run it inside the browser on JavaScript. So that's what I'm going to do right now. You probably shouldn't actually do that in reality because it's about a 20 megabyte model to download, but you could, and that's what I'm doing here. So let's see how this stuff works behind the scenes. Let's just test out a few different semantic matches. So I'm going to type cat, dog, goose. Oh, I'll spell that properly. All right. And so you can see that the word goose is 100% similar to the word goose, but is less similar to the concepts of dog or cat. But if I type in kitten, you'll see that kitten is quite strongly associated with cat and less associated with dog. So we get in a sense of the semantic similarity, but it's not just limited to single words. We can put in whole phrases. Let's say something like, where are you today? Okay, and then I'll enter another phrase like, on the Pacific Ocean. All right. Now you'll see that it's not a very strong relationship, but still the most strong relationship that it's picked up is with this question, where are you today? Even though there's no words in common, they're similar in the sense that they're both questions and they both relate to notions of location. So, you know, it's not just doing individual word matching, it's to do with the overall meaning of all the words that are in your sentence. And if I entered something like going sailing, then, you know, not surprisingly, it's going to pick out Pacific Ocean as the most similar match. All right, so in terms of code behind there, it's actually not a lot of code because most of the work is being done for us by this JavaScript library called transformers.js. And this is a library that knows how to fetch models from Hugging Face. Hugging Face is a community of machine learning people on the internet, which makes available many, many models that you can use. And if I was to go onto their webpage, I could look for models that will allow me to do these semantic searches or sentence similarity. So let's zoom in a bit. All right, so I could look in the natural language processing category, and I could look in sentence similarity, and then I'll get 6,000 different models that I can choose from that represent different ways of doing sentence similarity. And these are all kinds of different trade-offs about how big you want your model to be, how accurate, how many languages does it understand, things like that. Okay, and I've chosen to use this small one called BG Micro V2, which is only about 20 megabytes. Very easy for me to use. And then I've got a bit of JavaScript here, which I'm going to execute now. Let's just type stuff into here, or any stuff we want. What's that going to do? If I step through there, first we're waiting for this model to download on the client, which has already happened. And then we're pushing our text, which is the word stuff, into it right now. And we get our result back. And that is simply this vector. So you may well know about vectors and embeddings, but if you don't, here's the very quick version. The way that embedding models work is that they convert your sentences or text into a vector, a large list of floating point numbers. In this case, it's using 384 dimensions. So you can imagine a 384 dimensional space if you somehow your brain is capable of doing that. And the locations of things in space represent their meaning. So maybe all the cat things are over here and all the Pacific Oceans things are over here. And so sailing concepts are probably more in that direction than they are in that direction. And then when we want to compute the similarity, the logic for doing that is very straightforward. Here's an algorithm called cosine similarity, which works, if you know the maths of it, it's equivalent to a dot product, since these are normal vectors. And if you don't know what that means, it doesn't matter, because as you can see, this is only 2 lines of code. So it's really straightforward to do that. You can make it a bit faster if you vectorize it, but basically the concept of it is you just go and multiply all the corresponding numbers together, and then the result of that is a similarity value between 0, or between -1 and what? Is it -1 and 1? Yeah, it is. Okay, so that gives us our similarity value. Okay, so that is the basis of how we can implement features like the semantic matching in drop-downs, and it's very, very cheap to do that on CPU because it doesn't even require a large language model. All right, so those are some starting points for us to make our applications more useful without having to redesign what the application actually is and what its core functionality is. But maybe once you've done that, maybe once you're sold on that, you might think, okay, well, can we deliver even more value now by going to the next level and using AI within the actual functionality, within the machinery and workflows of the application? So let's see examples of that. Okay, so to give you an example, I'm going to try and pick the most basic and mainstream business scenario that I possibly can. It's not going to be clever or interesting, but hopefully it will be very relatable and everyone knows about it, which is simply e-commerce. So you've got some kind of e-commerce site that you can buy stuff from, but as well as buying stuff, you can also submit support requests. And those support requests are going to go to people who work for this e-commerce company, and they're going to deal with your inquiries. And so they are going to have some UI a bit like this, where they've got probably some kind of big grid that represents the flow of questions that are coming in. And that's their workflow. Now, this is a very mainstream scenario. Can AI actually deliver any useful value in this kind of thing? Well, I think it can. And here are some of the ways it can. So, for example, we've got a search box. So immediately we probably start to think, all right, can we make that a semantic search so that people don't have to remember how to phrase things or don't have to worry about typos or whatever. Okay. We've also got these little titles. So the titles are helpful because they allow staff to remember which case is which. You don't really want your end users to be providing a title because they'll provide some garbage like just the word help or something like that. So you want ideally titles that are genuinely useful, and a language model can easily summarize to produce a distinctive title. We've also got these types, and so when you see that, you might start to think, all right, instead of waiting for people to pick their own types, can we automatically classify? And we've got a bit of sentiment scoring as well, which can help staff know how to direct their attention. And as well as all that, once the staff member starts working on an issue, they're probably going to have a grid of properties for each issue. And again, we're going to start thinking we can do some classification and semantic search on that. There might be a big conversation that's gone on between the customer and the staff member. Could be a huge conversation, and you don't want your staff wasting their time rereading the whole thing from the start every time they open it. So it would be nice to add a bit of summarization in there so the staff member can immediately get to work. And once they understand what the question is, they want to answer it. Now, do your staff know everything about all the products, or do they have to look stuff up in a manual? If they do, then at this point, it genuinely is quite useful to have some kind of Q&A chatbot type thing that's going to be able to look in manuals and provide relevant information. But we want to be sure that what information it gives is actually correct. So we'll want to force it to provide citations. And then finally, when the staff member tries to actually give their response, we could do one of these type ahead type things, like I showed you before, where we've got all this context from the manual and so on, and we can provide the relevant information while they are typing. All right, so I hope you agree, or at least are somewhat open to the idea that AI could add some value in a typical business app like that. Let's have a go at doing it ourselves now in some code, and we're going to start with the summarization. Okay, so I'm going to get my application running. And once again, this is going to be a .NET application, but parts of it are written in other languages. So there's some JavaScript in here, some Python. I'll show you some bits of that as we go. And we are going to use a set of different language models and, well, large models and small models in order to add some of that functionality. Excuse me. All right, so here it comes when it starts up. All right, so we're going to go into this staff web UI, and you'll see that that looks very much like the thing that I had in those PowerPoint slides, except we are missing the summary and satisfaction things. And if I go into one of these issues, you can see we do have this really long and tedious conversation with the customer, and there's no way I can possibly bother to read all that. So I want to add a bit of automatic summarization. And the way I want it to work is, every time someone submits any message, like let's just send a message, a really stupid and useless message like that. Whenever a message gets sent, I want it to regenerate a summary of the overall state of the conversation at this point. So I'm going to go and find the code that I've got that deals with when messages get added. So that is going to be here. And make it so we can see it. All right, so this is a bit of C# code that deals with messages getting posted. This is the code that actually saves it to a database. You don't need to know about that. But what I want to do is add the ability to automatically add a summary once we've done that. And what's that going to do? Well, if we go into the code for that, it's going to be very similar to the sort of thing we were doing before. So once again, we are telling a language model what to do. We're saying, your job is to write summaries. And here are some details. We'll inject some information about the context, like what product and brand this is about. We'll inject some of the information we've got about the conversation history. And we'll tell it what to do. We'll say, write a long summary, up to 30 words long. That's what we'll use in the details page. We'll say, give me a short summary that we can use as a title. And we'll say also, based on what they said, I want you to score the customer's satisfaction using one of the following phrases. Okay? And the phrases that we're allowing it to use are all of these things up here. Now, you might think, well, that's a bit weird. Why don't you just tell it to give a satisfaction score between like 1 and 100 or something like that? And the answer, as you will learn if you start working with language models, is because it's a language model and not a numbers model. And language models are really good at working with languages and really bad at working with numbers. If you ask it to give you a number between 1 and 100, it will give you a number, but it probably won't have very much correspondence to the facts that you're trying to get it to rate. Whereas if you ask it to pick one of these emotional words, it will do a great job of picking one that matches the tone of how the customer seems to be. And then you can just map that back to a number yourself. So that's a little bit of prompt engineering. All right. And then we're telling it finally to reply with a JSON object. We can parse that and we can store that in our database. All right. So let's try that out now. So I'm going to say, send another message like this. And that should now go to the system. Actually, it's a bit of a long summary. I should probably make it less than 30 words. But anyway, it's produced a summary, and we now have a basic sense of what the customer is asking us. And if I go back to the main page here, you can see that we've generated this short title as well. We've also generated a customer satisfaction score, which in this case is very low. Okay, so let's try another one. Just send another message to them just to force it to regenerate, and you can see once again it's produced an excessively long summary, so I want to work on my prompt a little bit, but it has summarized it, and over here we've got our title and we've got our customer satisfaction score as well. All right, so that's just getting us started with a bit of summarization. Let's try out some other stuff now. Let's try out some classification, and I'll be able to use a different type of model for this. So what we're going to classify now are these case types. You see we've got various different types that we can pick from: question, comment, and so on. And we could allow the end user to pick their own type, but they probably will just put garbage into it. And we could wait for our staff members to pick a type as well, but it would be quite nice if instead of waiting for the staff member to do that, we could make our first guess in an automated way. And maybe you can use that to trigger different workflows, like which staff member it goes to or something like that. It might get the wrong case type and they can send it on to someone else, but you know, hopefully 80–90% of the time it will get the right thing first time. All right, so how can we do something like that? Well, we could go and find a model for it. Well, we could actually use a large language model. Okay, so we could just say to a large language model, here's some text, pick a label for it, and it'll do that. It'll do a really good job of it, fine. But large language models are expensive to consume. You know, you're paying for every token that you're using, and it might take half a second or something to round trip all of this stuff. So wouldn't it be nice if there was a much smaller model that could do classification really well? And there is. So if we went back to Hugging Face, we could have a look under the zero-shot classification category, and we'll see there's lots of different models for that, again representing different size accuracy trade-offs. And what these models do is they take in some text and a set of candidate labels, and they tell you which label they think is the best match for it. And again, these models are quite small. You can just run them on your server, and that's what I'm going to do here. So I've got a little bit of Python code, which I'm going to have to try and find now. All right, so within my application, I've also got an API server built with Python, Python Fast API, and among that, I've added a classifier endpoint. And I'm going to use this library called Transformers, which is the Python version of the Transformers.js library that I used before. And just like that, I can tell it which Hugging Face model I want it to use. In this case, I'm using this particular one, and I'm setting it up for zero-shot classification. And that allows me then to have a endpoint that receives some text and a set of labels and decides which one is the best match. So let's try that out directly, just using curl. So if I make a request to my endpoint here saying some text, this is a Python API, and the candidate labels are animals, programming, or music. What's it going to pick? It's going to pick programming. Okay, and if I change that text to this is a Python, it's now going to pick animals. Or if I change it to this is a song about Pythons, it now classifies that text as being music. So this is what we're using here in this application. When a user comes along and submits a support ticket, we are going to automatically run it through that. So let's pretend to be an end user now. So I'm going to say I want to add a support request about a particular product. It's going to be about a tent. We've got semantic search on that, so it would match things like hammock as well. How can we help? is this hammock edible? Okay, so I'll submit that. Very reasonable customer support inquiry there. And now if I go back to the list here, you'll see that Bob Smith has asked this question, and in fact it's been categorized as a question, as it should be. Whereas if Bob was to say something like, I need to return stuff, like that, and we submit that, then when I come back over here now, you'll see Bob, his new case has now been classified as returns. So we could trigger different workflows based on that, even if it's not 100% accuracy, as long as people can still change the classifications that have been assigned after the fact. Okay, bit of classification there. Right, moving on again to another application pattern that we can do if we're really serious about building this sort of thing. We'll get into the more complicated one now, which is this whole Q&A chatbot type thing. All right, so let's try and take on another one of these support inquiries. Let's do this one. And okay, so my first problem here is that this person is trying to talk to us in German, and I do not speak German. I'm sure that many of you do, but I don't, so I don't even know what they're saying here. So of course it is genuinely useful to be able to say something like, what are they asking? Translate to English. And then hopefully that will be able to reply with a reasonable translation. Now, it's not surprising that that works well, because the entire large language model revolution came out of automated machine translation. That was where all the models started, and that where all this work around transformers started. And so we should expect it to be pretty good about doing translation. Okay, that's cool. But can it actually answer this question? The customer is trying to ask what the pin code for Bluetooth pairing is. So I could ask it, what does the manual say about this? What does it do? It says, I will look up the manual to find information. But then it doesn't. So it's just completely lying to us. It's saying that it's going to answer the question, but failing to do so. Why is that? Let's go and see our code here and make sense of how this is implemented and how we can give it the ability to actually answer these questions properly. Okay. So what we've got here is this is the code that gets run whenever I submit a message to it. So I've got some JavaScript in the browser that when you submit a message, it's going to send a fetch request to the server with that message. And then on the server, we are going to build a prompt into our language model and get it to actually provide a response. In this case, our prompt is saying, you're an assistant, your job is to help customer service. Here's some context about the product that we're working on, the customer name, the summary that you generated earlier about the ticket, in case that helps. Here's the most recent message from the customer. So that's how it was able to translate the message, because it was in the context window like that. And we give it some other prompts as well, saying things like, if this is about the product, I really want you to search the product manual. Always justify your answer by providing a search result. Okay, so that makes sense, but it didn't search the product manual, did it? Why not? Because by default, language models cannot access your data. Not surprising, really. Unless your data was somehow part of the original training for that model, it doesn't know about your products. And so that brings us to a classic pattern that you've probably heard of already, called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And there's a talk at the end of today that goes into RAG in great detail. So if you want to learn about some advanced RAG techniques, you can go to that later on. But this is just going to give us a quick overview for people who are not familiar with how this works. So the general concept of retrieval augmented generation is that during the generation, we allow the language model to make calls back into your code to ask for more information. You retrieve that information, give it back to the language model, and then it's able to generate a better response. And the way that you actually allow it to make calls to your code, well, that's going to depend on what frameworks or libraries or APIs you are using. And everyone's got different ways of doing it. This happens to be .NET, and I'm using a library called Semantic Kernel. But if you're using Spring AI, there's another way of doing it. If you're using a Python API, there'll be other ways of doing it. In this case, with Semantic Kernel, the way it works is we tell it, we have this concept of plugins where you can add functionality that it can call. And I've defined this search manual plugin, which gives a function, a C# method that we can call. And we're saying, if you want a search manual, I want you to give me the search phrase as a string, and I want you to also tell me what product ID this is about. And then you can write your own logic in there that does whatever kind of retrieval you want. So you could do traditional database full text search, you could do semantic search with a vector database, which I am doing here. You can do whatever you want, right? But you return some data based on this search, and then that will augment the generation. So let's try that out. I've got a breakpoint in there now, and I'm going to say, what does the manual say about this? And we should hit our breakpoint, we do, and we can see what search phrases it decided to use. It's trying to search for Bluetooth pairing pin, which makes sense, and it's provided us with the product ID of 130. So we can put our own logic to do whatever retrieval we want with that. So let's continue execution. And you can see that now it does actually get the manual results, include that in the results, and it's actually provided an answer. It's saying enter the pin 0000. But is that actually right? Well, we've told it to provide a citation, so we can check. Okay, so it's given us this link, and if we click on there, that'll take us into the actual product manual PDF, and you can see it's highlighted the exact basis for the claim, so the staff member can verify that that's actually true. Okay, and so then they could come back and say something like, right, a reply to the customer saying that, just because they don't want to bother doing that themselves, in German, because obviously I want that in German. Okay, now addressed to customer, and we just refine that a little bit until eventually it's given us something that matches what we want. We can just click use as reply, send that to the customer, and hopefully we've got a happy customer at that point, even though they'll be weirded out by why I've just written your name at the bottom of it. Okay, so that is a simple bit of retrieval augmented generation, and you know that's a common pattern that people are increasingly adding into their applications. But around this point, you've got to stop for a second and think, how do we know it's actually working? Like, is any of this real? Like, or is it just giving us random results back? How can we be sure? Like, how do we know that the summaries that we're generating are actually faithful representations of the text? How do we know that the classifications are accurate? How do we know that the claims that it's making in our RAG chatbot are actually accurate? Well, we've got citations, but maybe there's some other conflicting information somewhere else. How do we really know? And so that takes us on to the next stage of our journey, where we reach the point of enlightenment on this mountain, and we become systematic about actually measuring the quality of what we're doing. We find ways of actually scoring numerically the quality of the system, and so we're able to evaluate what effect different changes on it would have. Like maybe some other prompt would produce a better result. Maybe a different model would produce a better result. Let's be systematic about actually finding out. So how can we do that? Well, first we have to decide what it is that we want to evaluate. And for the sake of making this interesting, I'm going to pick the most complicated bit of the software here, which is this Q&A chatbot thing. So we're going to try and evaluate how good its answers actually are. And the way that people normally do evaluation is to create some sort of test dataset, evaluation dataset, which contains examples of the sort of questions that will be asked and what we consider to be the right answers, and then we can systematically try them all out and get a score about how good the answers are. So in terms of getting data like that, well, all the data actually that you've seen in this application, all the customers, tickets, products, the manuals, everything that as you've seen in here has been stuff that I've just generated using AI, and I'll give you access to the code for that at the end of this talk. It's often very useful to be able to work from machine-generated data sets because perhaps for privacy reasons you can't use your actual production data in development or testing. And one of the benefits of having a system of generating all this sort of test data is you can generate an evaluation data set as well, and that's what I've done here. Okay, so I've got this set of evaluation questions that I've generated, and that is a long list of questions, like really long, hundreds or thousands of different questions that customers might ask, and for each one we've got the right answer. So for product 35, what is included in the set? Well, it's this stuff. Or for product 28, how do you turn it off? Well, press and hold the power button. Okay. Now you might ask, how do we know that this is the right answer? Like if this was generated by AI, maybe this is wrong as well. Well, the answer to that is that I'm saying that this is right by definition. Right, I'm defining these to be the right answers because this is what the information that I've used to generate all the other data from. So although in theory there could be small inconsistencies sometimes, in general, this is the basis for all the other data that we've got. So I'm saying that by definition, these are the right answers that everything else is derived from. And once we've got that, we can now run an evaluation loop. So I've got an evaluation project somewhere down here. All right, so once again, it doesn't matter whether you know C#. Conceptually, you can imagine what we're doing here is we've loaded all of that list of questions and then we're looping over them with some level of parallelism just to make it a bit faster. And we're sending all of those questions to the chatbot. And we're getting its answers, and after it's given us some answers, we can score them using another language model. So we get the answer, that it's given us, we get what we say is the true answer, and we send that to another language model saying, how well does the answer that's given match the truth here, given that this is the truth? And we can ask it to score it based on relevance, truthfulness, accuracy. We can also score the speed, the number of tokens, whatever other things that we want to generate an overall number of the quality of our system. So let's try that out now. I am going to, actually just before I do that, I'm going to do a thing to change the behavior of the assistant so we can see the effect of it. So remember here I gave it the ability to search product manuals. I'm just going to take that ability away temporarily, and now I'm going to run my evaluator. So that's going to loop through all those thousands of questions and send them to the back end, and it's going to get scores. And this is not just evaluating the prompt, it's not just evaluating semantic search, it's not just evaluating the model or your agent logic or anything else, it's evaluating everything, like it's a full end-to-end evaluation of everything working together. And we're getting these running average scores, and I could leave this running for a long time to get a very stable average eventually, but we're not going to bother doing that. You can see on average it's producing scores that are about 0.4, 0.48, something like that. That's slightly higher than I'd normally expect. Eventually that will average down to about 0.3 something, and it's answering in about 1.2 seconds. Okay, so these numbers, the absolute value of the number doesn't matter. What matters is that bigger numbers are better. And this is the way it's scoring if it doesn't even have access to product manual data. But I'm going to give it access to the product manual again by uncommenting that line of code. And then I'm going to run the evaluation loop one more time. And we should see, hopefully, that it's going to produce better scores now because it's now got access to the actual information behind the scenes. So let's just wait for it to start giving us some numbers. And you can see that as the average starts to come in, it's much higher than it was before. Well, actually, it's surprisingly low there, but it is higher. It's already higher. And I know from experience that's going to end up averaging out at about 0.8 over the long run. But it's also taking quite a bit longer. You can see that previously it was taking 1.2 seconds, where it's now taking about 2.1 seconds for each inquiry. And we should expect it to take longer because it's now going through more cycles in order to search the manual and generate a better answer. But clearly the average score is much higher now than it was before. So the point of this is that it allows you, the developer, to make whatever trade-offs you want. You can try out different prompts, you can try out different models, different agent strategies, different vectorization approaches, different chunking, whatever you want, and then you can determine whether or not the scores are actually going up or down in a systematic way. All right, so that is all we are going to have time for today. I hope some of that has been useful to you. If you want access to any of the code from here are some links. Now, as I've said, this is .NET code mostly, but if you want, you can go in there and just steal the JavaScript or the Python or the CSS or whatever is useful to you and generally use that for inspiration in your application.